a video about the Nikon Z8 from the same guy who told you just 6 months ago that he wasn't moving to mirrorless. Fair enough. You've got questions and I owe you answers. That D850 video was only the third video I'd ever uploaded to YouTube. It is still my most watched video by far, with over 30,000 views and hundreds of comments. And most of my subscribers come from that video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Some of the comments that I got were, let's say, not aligned to my perspective. Some were a little passive aggressive, and some were, well, let's say, in fact, the less said the better. But the majority were supportive of my main points, and most of those that weren't were thoughtful, encouraging and respectful in their disagreement. It is, to a large degree, these comments that have led to the making of this video now. Firstly, critically, everything I said in that video still stands about both the D850 and the Z8. In fact, the main thrust of the video was not actually about the cameras or the systems themselves. I wasn't debating whether one camera was better than the other. My point was that there was nothing that the Z8 could offer me that was compelling enough to me, and that's critical, to me, to make me change systems. I've had the D850 for years and I love it. The D850 was and is a phenomenal camera. Image quality is second to none. Battery life is still better than most modern bodies. My main body has traveled to over 20 countries around the world with me, and I've taken shots that I am proud of, shots that, in my view, do justice to the subject, and ultimately, shots that will bring back memories for many, many, many years to come. And yes, that shutter sound, it still gives me goosebumps. Nothing I say today is me turning my back on the Nikon D850. However, many of you made a point that I just couldn't ignore. You said that just because the Z8 can make things easier, it doesn't make it cheating. It doesn't make you less of a photographer. A number of comments said it's no more cheating than moving from film to digital. But one point more than any other, resonated. It stuck with me and really caused me to think. A few people made the point in various different ways, but in essence it was, if you genuinely believe that a great image is about the photographer, not the camera, then surely that works both ways. I.e., give the photographer more room to do what they need to do to make a great image. And if the camera can help with that, then why wouldn't you do it? I then had an experience that really highlighted that I was talking about systems and not about camera bodies. It is almost unquestioned that the Nikon D850 is the best DSLR camera ever produced. And some, not all, but some of the f-mount lenses are superb. And some of them, they have their drawbacks, even if their image quality is superb. On my trip to the Kruger National Park, I was shooting with my beloved 600mm f4 prime lens. It's an absolutely gorgeous lens. The images it produces are stunning, but it is heavy, it's cumbersome, and it's impossible for me to shoot handheld. As you'll see in my videos from that Kruger trip, I'll put some links below, but I used this D850 and 600mm combination quite a lot from the car. Even then, it was awkward. It was difficult to maneuver, especially if the sighting was a moving target or on the opposite side of the car. So I carried a second body. It was also a D850, but the lens that I used with that body was a Sigma 150-600 contemporary. Now, I like that Sigma lens. It's lighter, it's flexible with that variable focal range, and it produces images of a really good quality. But let's be honest, it's not in the same league as the 600mm f4 prime. In the car with both setups ready to go, it wasn't a major headache. But I can't carry that amount of kit around with me when I'm on foot. So when I'm out of the vehicle, I have a dilemma. I have a quandary. I have a question I have to answer every time. Do I sacrifice image quality for flexibility and a lighter weight and therefore take the Sigma? Or do I sacrifice portability and risk missing shots at shorter focal lengths for that ideal sharpness that I get from the 600mm f4? It's a difficult question to answer, if not impossible. So when I returned from the Kruger, I rewatched a bunch of YouTube videos on the Z180 to 600mm lens. I knew pretty much everything I needed to know about the Z8 and the Z9 bodies. It was the lens I was really interested in. Those videos and a bunch of other reviews waxed lyrical about the all-round performance of that lens, its weight, its internal zooming, making it really quite compact, and everything I could find about the image quality said it was just fantastic. Could I really get the best of both worlds with one body and one lens? Strangely, just after that, I went on a landscape workshop, and this time I was shooting seascapes, long exposure, and I found myself in the semi-dark, faffing about with the bulb functionality on the D850, and it was a major pain, especially for 2 or 3 minute exposures, because you can't set the shutter speed to be longer than 30 seconds without using the bulb feature. We all know that the light can be fleeting, and missing shots because I was distracted by counting and not counting because I was distracted was not just annoying, I was losing the chance to get the shots I wanted. That's just not acceptable. One of the pros leading the workshop pointed out that one of the larger photography stores in South Africa was currently in sale period. And the two in the field experiences, the Kruger experience and the seascape experience on that workshop, meant that I bit the bullet. I bought a Z8 and a 180 to 600, a 2470 and a 1635. And I'll get the 7200 at some stage, but using my existing F mount with the adapter for now. The first thing I did, of course, once the delivery arrived was to visit one of my favorite birding locations, Mariaville, just south of Johannesburg. And I took a few comparison shots. I'll put one up on the screen now. It's always difficult comparing images on YouTube, but you have my word for it when I say that at 600mm, they are almost indistinguishable in quality. Now, I can of course shoot with a wider aperture on the 600mm prime, all the way down to f4, so with some background and in some lighting conditions, that's definitely an advantage. But aside from that, the side-by-side comparisons are remarkably close. Now, of course, I've edited them in the same way and cropped them to the same size to try and get a like-for-like comparison. But there's virtually nothing in it, if anything. And once printed, in my view, there's no difference. Now, the actual difference is that the Z180-600 gives me flexibility of that focal range, the lighter weight, and the practicality I need in the field, and the 600mm prime just doesn't do that. This was a bit of a light bulb moment because it means I no longer have to choose between image quality and flexibility. With the Z8 and the 1860, I get both. I can shoot handheld without a problem. Now, before you think I've ditched the D850, let me be clear, I'm keeping it. In fact, I will probably keep both. Not just as a backup, but as an equal to the Z8, just for different uses. For example, just this last weekend, I shot an Ironman event, and I had to get one particular athlete. I wanted him cresting a hill just before the finish line. Now, after a 2-kilometer swim in the open water, 80 kilometers on the bike, and an 18-kilometer run, I really couldn't get him to stop and go back for a second shot if I messed up. So I had one chance, one frame. In that scenario, I used the D850 with my 15-year-old 7200. Because I know that combo inside out, I know exactly what I'll get. And I got exactly the shot that I wanted. And maybe as I get more familiar with the Z8, it'll start to take over more of the D850's work. But right now, it's about 50-50 between the two cameras. So what do I really like about the Z8? Well, firstly, the picture quality. I don't see a real difference between it and the D850, and I love the D850. So I've got to love the Z8 for picture quality. The autofocus with eye capture, yep, no, I've got to admit it. It makes one hell of a difference when it comes to bird photography. Now, it is not perfect, not by a long way. It gets massively confused by reflections. And I think for almost every shot where the bird wasn't in flight, I use single point focus without the bird detect feature. For birds in flight though, it's a game changer. I've done a lot of bird in flight photography and I've got my technique down pretty good, but I reckon this increases my eye in focus rate by about 50%. When it comes to frames per second, with the D850 and the battery grip, I was getting 9 frames per second. On the Z8, so far, I've pushed it to 12. Yeah, as I said in my last video, I'm not really a fan of the culling process, and working through 2,000, 3,000 shots after a wildlife shoot is more than enough for me. The Z8, of course, can go all the way up to 120 frames per second. Yeah, it's in JPEG, but one, I haven't hit a situation yet where that kind of speed was useful. Maybe it might help with hummingbird shots, but I haven't found a scenario where it was useful. Two, I'd rather miss a couple of shots than try and cull 15,000 shots per shoot. And then there's video. In my first D850 video, I openly acknowledged that the Z8 was far superior for video, but I shrugged it off. And that's because at the time, I didn't use video. At that time, I'd only just started this YouTube channel and I was shooting everything with my Pocket 3. Well, now, 6 months on, I really see the value. The Z8's video capability will add significantly to my YouTube workflow and help me show you the locations I'm in and the wildlife and the birds that I'm shooting. The footage is sharp, it's detailed, it's smooth. It's just a massive step up, and for YouTube, it's become genuinely compelling for me. There are some Z8 features I haven't really explored yet. They don't really appeal to me, to be honest. Auto capture, for example. It's there, but I haven't felt compelled to try it out yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Right now, it really does feel like it is taking over too much of the photographer's job. The EVF, I remain unsure on. It still doesn't feel natural to me. Yeah, sure, technologically it's fantastic. You can see exactly what the camera is going to capture for you, but it just doesn't feel quite right. So the jury's out. I remain concerned about battery life. And whilst the fix, I guess, is relatively straightforward, look, if you're spending the kind of money you are to get into the Z8 or the Z9 ecosystem, then you can afford to carry a couple of spare batteries with you. But that doesn't stop it being a pain. And critically, it doesn't stop the battery dying at a critical moment. So that remains a concern for me. But I've made the move. And ultimately, here's the thing. My why hasn't changed. I've done a whole video on my reasons for why I shoot photography and why it's important to understand your own why. In short, photography for me is still about the anticipation. It's about the connection. It's about the story. It's still incredibly personal, a chance to break away from the noise and the clutter and deadlines and to think, or to not think and just to be. That why hasn't shifted one bit. With the Z8, I don't have to compromise between image quality and flexibility. It helps me focus more on the experience itself, the waiting, the light, the wildlife, without juggling too much gear. And for me, That's a difference that in the end, after testing, was compelling enough for me to make the move. So yes, I've bought into the Nikon Z8. Not because the D850 isn't brilliant. It is. Not because mirrorless has won the debate. I think on the technical and the specifications, that debate had already been won long ago. But because for me, in the way I shoot wildlife and now video, the Z8 solves some real problems. This isn't a detailed review of the Z8. It doesn't dive into the technical specifications. There are a myriad of videos out there that do that for you extremely well. But this is more about my reasons, given my previous video, why I have now shifted to the mirrorless system, not from the DSLR, but into a hybrid environment. I loved reading your comments on the first video, and I'd love to hear from you again. Are you still happily shooting with your DSLR? Have you made the move to mirrorless? And if so, what tipped the balance for you? Please, drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them and I respond to as many as I possibly can. Would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. You'll get notified of any upcoming videos and I look forward to seeing you in one of those. In the meantime, please, take care. Bye-bye.